Can't see who's in the room, but thank you for attending, and thank you all who are attending online. Chris?
Got it. Okay, let's please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First of all, can everybody hear me? Okay, microphone's carrying back there. So a few basic things I just want to go over before we get started. Because this is an Abutters meeting, basically, even though it's open to the public, I'd like to give priority to the Abutters when it comes to asking questions or raising issues. And so when we get to that, which is going to take a few minutes, I'd like you to identify yourselves and like where where you are in a butter from, so we know what angle you're looking at the building from. So just a few basic points I think it would be wise if we cover in advance. One is speaking for myself, because I really can't speak for the whole committee unless we vote on it. But I think that we're in a situation here where we have a tall order to fill, and we need to find a way that we can all agree on what's best for the community. Because we have, in order to have a new building of any sort, we have to pass a debt exclusion, which is going to be a town-wide vote. And that is not going to be an easy lift. So I am looking for a consensus, if we can finally at some point come to one, on a plan that we can all support and we can move forward together. Because honestly, without the abutters and the people that live nearby the school, we don't have a chance of getting this passed, in my opinion. So having said that, some people will believe that we don't need a new building, and some people just won't feel they can manage the tax increase, and that's certainly understandable. So the rest of us sort of have to carry the weight. The first thing I'd like to do is, there's a diagram up on the screen, and I'm going to go and stand by the TV. Use this thing. Haven't been in a classroom in a long time.
I have a laser pointer.
That's all right. All right, so I want you to look at what's on the TV. And this is the top of the building. So Bob, can you point where we are? Like somehow show people where we're.
Right here, in the screen area.
Oh, all right, that's the bottom of the building.
Yep.
Even I had it backwards, which is why I want to do this, so we're all oriented. Because I find these diagrams.
Far away from the mic,
The diagrams are confusing, so I'm trying to get us all on the same page here. So Bob has pointed out the central office. That's where we are, right in that green spot. Now, if you walked out this door and took a left and continued to walk all the way down, you'd end up in the cafeteria. And that's the orange part right there. Now, that part of the building remains. That part of the building can be fixed and still used, and it can be great. Now, if you look at the top of the screen, which is the bottom of the building, at least in my mind, that's where the gyms and the, I'm getting a lot of feedback from that. Oh, somebody got, Martha?
Yeah, I turned all the volume off.
Just mute it, Martha, that'll work. So that's where the gyms and the locker rooms and the fitness center in that bottom part of the building. And that also can be kept and renovated and be useful for years to come. So what we're looking at is the top that can be kept, the bottom that can be kept, and the middle, which you see is all grass in this picture. That's the bulk of the school currently, and that has to go. It has to go because it has to go. Yeah, yeah.
Sorry. All right, I'll just try to see it. You got it?
You can just listen to me. I'm pretty loud. So you can't really fix that. You can't get rid of it until you have new space to put the kids in. You can't fix it while the kids are in the school. And you really can't fix it at all because the streets are so steep, the classrooms are dark, there's no natural light. If you wanted to tear it down and rebuild it in the middle, you'd have to move the entire high school out for 2 to 4 years while you built something there and then moved them in. And the cost of that is excessive, plus the cost of running school somewhere else. Would you rent? Would you lease? And where would you have school? And that really isn't fair to the kids either. So I wanted to point out that center part where you see all the grass is really an important focus of this project. Now let's see, back to my notes. So all of the options that are remaining in this plan have that center part of the building gone. So we're not looking at anything where that's used. But again, you can't get rid of it until you've got somewhere to move the kids. The seat's right up here in front. Come on up. In an ad reno, and we'll show you diagrams of the ad reno that the architect has put together that show you the size, where they're located, how tall they are. Now, they're not fancy. They don't have windows and pretty siding, but it would show you where they would be. In an ad reno, this space in the middle here, right about there, would be the front door of the building. The new building with an ad reno would have the front door right in the middle there. And on one side of it, you'd have a parent drop-off, which you can see later in a diagram. And on the other side, you'd have a bus loop. So that would be a very active, busy area in that grass spot. The building would be built out one way, and then when the kids are moved into it, it would be filled in this way with an entryway and these new driving areas. So it would be active. In a new construction, that area would not be built on. I'm not going to go. I know nobody wants to hear me say Varsity Field could go there, so I'm not going there. Okay, that part of the grassed area, if we were to build on Varsity Field, and if we were to put Varsity Field on the practice field, which you can't see in this picture, that could be basically open, except we would have to put a track in there. So from the abutters perspective, what I'm asking you to do is think about where do you live in proximity to the building, and what do you really want in that space? Sorry about that. So, oh, and if we did put a track in there, there is no plan to put any lighting. It would just be a track. And then in the center, it could be anybody's guess what went in the middle. What we have available tonight are some images of where the additions would go, what they're going to look like, how close they are to the neighbors, how tall they are. They're 3 and 4 stories high. These images are basic block images. They're not They're not fancied up with pretty windows and all that. And so that's my introduction, folks. Trying to make a little noise with the mic. And I'm going to go back and ask for the abutters first, if anyone has questions or if you want to see the diagrams that we have.
Can you do your presentation that you're gonna do with the diagrams, and then we'll ask our questions? That would
If
probably
that's
make
what
more
everybody
sense.
wants, is that what everybody wants?
Yeah.
There are a lot of new people here.
Okay, great.
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm Chris, from TAP A, the principal for the project from the architect side. This first slide is a slide to sort of highlight existing water resources on the site. Knowing there's potentially some new folks who haven't seen this, we've shown it before, but to kind of walk you through it, the green, is cursor showing a little bit? Well, it says wetland up there, so the green wetland area is wetlands. The purple sort of finger that comes through there is the current FEMA flood map for 10% annual chance of flood. The Long Meadow Brook there is shown as a sort of solid blue line running through, and that has a 200-foot riverfront. The wetlands have a 100-foot buffer, and then inside of that there's a 50-foot and then a 20-foot. All have different ramifications. The dark blue, there's a few dark blue spots, and the civil analysis was highlighting that there's some low-lying areas that have ponding and water during various parts of the year. And so we're showing this in a way to understand what water resources are affecting and running through the site, and any project that is going to take place on the site, whether it's, frankly, if it was just a renovation only or a new building or anything to do with this building and the project, we would need to make the current flow and rate of runoff better. So we have to resolve water on site better than what it is today. So it has to be an improvement. And there's no like 100% improvement or anything like that, but we have to show improvement. And most of our projects, we've been able to achieve pretty high rates on that. So that's just an underlying principle that we won't create any new stormwater discharges directly to the wetlands or anything like that. Actually, there is currently some discharges straight into the wetlands. We'd have to correct that and treat those before they hit any kind of groundwater resources. And so there is some work that needs to happen as part of the project as a baseline, and we're assuming all of that in already. This diagram builds on that with a little bit of a zoom in, and we're showing a few things on this one. One is the buildable area really kind of shakes out to be all of these diagrams north is to the right of the image, and so the buildable area ends up being that yellow zone in the middle there, if you're going to do something directly associated with this building. And to the comments made by Ms. Monaco a minute ago, the middle of the building, which is shown in gray on this diagram, is the portion that we've identified as the part that needs to go. We got some slides to show you a little bit more about that in a minute. But that's the portion of the building that has the most problems with it. The reason the two ends can stay is because they're basically have their own level, and One of the biggest problems with the existing building is accessibilities, where everything is pretty much on a 5-foot cascading down a hillside, or down a slope, I should say. And so it makes it really hard to deal with accessibilities in an effective, efficient way. Also on this diagram, we are just sort of starting to lay in some of the, you can see the streets are being labeled, hopefully a little bit better so people understand where they're at. We wanted to highlight the Arlington Road adjacency, which is the black line there. It says Arlington Road on it, and then show some offsets from that are showing 100 feet and 200 feet. Mostly because the buildable area is in the yellow, we wanted to make sure that sort of the context of that buildable area in relation to Arlington Road is understood, just as a data point, not saying anything about how people should feel about that or understand it, but that's dimensionally what you're looking at. And then the options here, AR2 is the ad reno portion, the ad reno that is most going into the middle of the building, which is what was just talked about by Ms. Monaco. And you can see on this diagram, the blue arrow with yellow buses is the bus loop, and then the orange arrow is cars. And we have an underlying goal with anything that we do on site to sort of try to get buses and cars separated if we can to the greatest extent possible. Having been on the site several times when there's a drop-off or a pickup, it's actually a pretty big nightmare when the buses and cars are mixing. And so it's a good design principle that we go for on every project, is to figure out ways we can separate those as early as possible and as efficiently as possible. So you'll kind of see that theme through all of these site plans. But the key here is that the tan color is the addition, the white are the renovation existing to remain portions, and then you can see the relationship between the tan and the south, more southerly end on this diagram, the bottom end of this diagram, this sort of plaza that's generated between the drop-off for buses and the drop-off for cars and the front door of the building. This option in 3D, so we're starting to try to extrude these. I think at one of the recent building committee meetings, folks were wondering if we could show some scale or what these look like. All these are also just, if you're interested, are 3D printed over there to the scale that they would be, like the massings. These same sort of yellow massing studies are available to sort of mix and match and play with the scale model over there. Happy to walk people through that so you can kind of get a feel for it, literally. But these images are also in the sort of handout we had. We wanted that to be something you could take home and just consider as you think about what you want to see as an abutter in your backyard or front yard, depending on where you live. So this is that option, AR2, and that, if you go back a couple slides, and you see this offset here, 100 feet, 200 feet. The 200 feet is well into that yellow, and this building on the end of that wing, as it comes close to about, if you look where the D and road is, and go straight out, that portion of the building is going to be, about 150 feet from Arlington Road. It is it's 3 stories, right? Yeah, it's 3-story building on that end, 3-story classroom wing, and then the other end is the more big spaces like cafeteria, auditorium, admin, and things like that. So 3 stories means about a little less than 45 feet of space of height from the ground level. And so that's kind of the nature of AR2. This is that diagram again, and then looking, we're doing our best here to show this option as it relates to Arlington Road is there on the left. This is Dottie's Way on the access road to the high school. You can see the white in the background for the parts of the building that remain, and then the yellow is just really a representative massing for how that might relate to the closest abutters on the left, which is Arlington Road. And so that's a kind of depiction of what that might look like on site. AR8 here is a similar option to adding on to that sort of buildable area that we talked about before. The part of the building that is to the, can you highlight that backside there, would be a 4-story building as the earth kind of bends down, like goes down the slope a little bit more. And then the side that actually faces Arlington Road would be more of like a 3-story representation on that side. And so you've got the addition, you've got the auditorium that remains, has to be heavily renovated to accommodate accessibilities, and then you've got the 2 ends of the building that we talked about previously. Again, showing the bus and car separations. And again, this one's going to be within the 200 feet from Arlington Road on this side. This is that option. You can kind of start to see how it cascades down that little hill, and it's a bigger profile on that side and a little bit shorter profile on the side that faces Arlington Road. This one might end up looking something like this as a sort of mass. Obviously, we would deal with the architectural expression of it with windows and fenestrations and things like that that kind of make it blend a little bit better. But the overall mass and feel probably is going to be something like this as you're coming up Dottie Way. Again, this is from Dottie Way and Arlington Road. So Arlington Road on the left. NC1 is a new building that's built over the student lot, and if you just referring back to that diagram where we showed all the wetlands and stuff, this is really an option that is built literally to respond almost specifically to the flagged wetlands that we have the data for. And so this is again a 3-story on the Dottie Road side, and then has a lower level on the back side towards where it says 20 there. This one has, again, the separation for buses and cars, where the middle of the building used to be, likely would be the replacement of the student parking that we had to take over to make this option work. This one in plan, the lower 2 houses on Arlington Road, I believe one has recently sold, has a sold sign in front of it, and then the next one up. Those are less than 150 feet from the face, like the front door of those buildings. So front door to front door of this option would be less than 150 feet for those 2 houses, and then obviously it is less as you go further up Arlington Road. This is what that option might look like from a massing study, and then from a perspective or sort of massing study from the ground level, this is what that option might look like as well. This is the NC4 option, a new option over on Varsity Field. Putting it on Varsity Field. This one, we're not showing really any solutions for Varsity Field associated with this in this diagram, but we've shown those previously. From Cambridge Street, looking north. This one overlaid on that. This one's a little harder to get perspectives and things to shake out exactly the right way, but because Cambridge Street is so high at this end, the building looks smaller down there on the field, and it'll look a little bigger from the north side looking backwards, and then a little bit bigger from Dottie's Way as you kind of circulate around and get down to ground level. This is the NC5 option, and similar idea where we're looking at putting it on Varsity Field. This is, the shape of it is meant to respond a little bit better to solar orientation as the sun moves around and get better sustainability effects from the building and just natural effects of solar. And this is that one shaking out like this a little bit. So both of those options have a similar effect when looking from Dottie's Way out towards the existing building with Arlington Street on the left, in the sense that it really will feel like it becomes open unless other ideas are brought up that we put something else there. And so, because no matter what project we do, as Ms. Monaco said, we would take out the middle of that building and keep the two ends. So it kind of creates a little bit of breathing room down there as compared to some of the other options. So some questions about the existing building. So there's sort of ideal dimensions related to classroom sizes, and when you're trying to target those, how do you make that work? There's existing column structures that are along those red lines, and those create a constraint because you don't really want, in order to make the classroom the right size, you kind of need some volume. And if you do that, then you end up with columns in the middle of classrooms, which is not a good solution. And then furthermore, that area that's within the red block there is all classrooms. This is on the second floor, and they're all classrooms without exterior windows. And so you start to get the picture of, these are just some of the constraints, and also each of these second floors are not connected one to the other. So you have to go, if you're on the one to the bottom right, and you want to go to the middle one, you actually have to go downstairs and back upstairs, or down an elevator and back up an elevator to get from one to the other. So that's a problematic reality around how the building works today.
You're talking about this building?
It's existing building, yeah. 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 This is the same kind of overlay on the first floor, which is the existing building first floor. The middle of the building, none of these rooms have exterior light, exterior classroom, or exterior daylight. The library does have some clerestories on the two sides, but it's very limited. And then the main streets, as we call them, are basically a long cascading ramp. I'm sure you've seen it. And doesn't present a very accessible at all option for navigating the school. It's quite a big difference from one end to the other. There's actually, I think, a bunch of different levels on this floor itself, so it'd be very challenging to make all of that connect holistically with the renovation option. So natural daylight, accessibilities, all of that affect the ability to renovate well. And then this is the diagram that we started with that just shows, from a baseline perspective, the middle of the building needs to go to make way for some improvement to this building, and that's where we're at now. And then obviously talking about the options of what goes in the infill. Is it a addition part of the building? Is it other things? Is it just left as a field like this? No program field, just like a natural field. So that's really what we had prepared. We're here to answer your questions and understand where you're at, and if we have data that we can provide or play out to answer a question, we're happy to do that.
Okay, so in order to proceed with questions or issues, I would request that you raise your hand, tell me if you're an abutter, because we want to do the abutters first, and then ask the question of the chair, and the appropriate person will then answer the question or talk about the issue or whatever. So is there anyone who'd like to come up and discuss anything in particular?
Point of information.
Millie, go ahead. You can come
I
up.
just wanted to ask if it was possible that the people looking at these slides
if you could put them on and people ask questions pointing at the slide, because a lot of people may not follow where things are.
Sure.
And I think.
Just let us know what-
I have to say, Chris, you did a wonderful job. It was the first time I figured out where they were. But a lot of people haven't seen these, and it's really confusing.
Took me a while too, Millie.
I'm proud of your progress.
Yeah, sure, if you want to see a particular slide or talk about a certain area, we'll put it up. I don't see a lot of questions. Go ahead. You
There's a
wanna come
hand
to
up
the microphone?
online.
There is a hand up, 2 hands online.
All right, in the room, though, the man in the green shirt, would you like to come up to the microphone? And introduce yourself, please.
I'm Rupen Sharma, and I live in One Sunset, so just a couple steps from here.
Very nearby.
Yeah. Last time during the town discussion, open discussion, I think there was discussion over possibility of, like, if we were to select some of the NC5 or new build in the current varsity field, that the varsity field could possibly be moved to the practice field. That was one of the options, and more study needed to be done. Is there any update on, like, on that study, or, like, any update on that possibility?
Chris, can you take that?
Yeah, so the way that would unfold, actually talking to conservation, is they said, when the snow melts, come back, we'll do the flagging, we'll officially go through that. And so right now, the best we can do is rely on the GIS data, which suggests to us that it's still feasible, but that is a conversation with conservation that would have to be confirmed over time.
Can you try to speak up with the mic?
Oh, sorry.
Even I'm having a little
Yep.
trouble hearing.
Okay.
You can pull it closer to it, Nathan.
Yes.
Sorry, just a quick follow-up on that. So the committee is due to propose a option in March, right? Or are you going to be selecting an option in March?
We have, we can't select an option until we have all the facts.
Okay, all right. Okay, cool. That was my question, yeah.
Is there someone online?
There were, but the hands are down. Sue Mayo online has her hand up.
Okay. Sue, would you like to ask a question or make a comment?
Well, I'm the one that you talk about that has the sold sign up. It's not fully sold yet, but
Believe in us.
we're getting there. But if it were built on the varsity field, like, didn't we just renovate the varsity field and do all kinds of things to that? So where would we move it? And I thought somebody once said that they were going to try and move it to a different school, perhaps Marshall Simons.
I'm going to ask Bob to answer that, but first I'm going to address Marshall Simons. The Marshall Simons fields are being renovated currently, and then the front field would have to be done separately. And we could move varsity field there temporarily, but the school committee would not want varsity field permanently off the campus because, well, there are a lot of reasons. It's just more cohesive to have everything on the campus, but also because when kids have to go to practices or whatever, honestly, there's a safety factor. We don't want them jumping in cars and driving around town when, with the field on campus, they can just walk to it. And I'll turn
They've always practiced at Marshall Simons, the whole soccer team, everything.
Well, sometimes they have to, but in general, we don't want to make it something they always have to do. But Bob can
They
answer. you.
almost always did.
Okay, Sarah, would you like to sit in the front? There's a seat up here. Bob, can you take that question?
Yeah, so the current varsity field renovation is in year 3 right now. Average lifespan is approximately 10 years. Doesn't mean we can't get more or less out of it, but assuming 10 years. So if we're at year 3 right now, assuming 4 years of build puts us at year 7, right? So we're approximately more than halfway through. We're maybe 3 years away from end of life, and that would be if we started building today. So if we're a year out from build plus 4 years of build, Again, we're down to 2 years left of life on that field. So we'll definitely be at least halfway through the life of that field in today's conversation.
And
Thank you.
There's a difference between just replacing the turf, replacing the track, and building a whole new field. We understand that there's a cost difference between those. But the situation we're facing, if we choose to build on the field, that will just have to be built in to move it and pay for it. Is there a next question? Sure, come on up.
It's less of a question, more of just my thoughts. So good evening, my name is Jason Fregoso. I live on Sunset Drive, 29 Sunset. Thank you for holding this meeting tonight. I know you guys were
You're
here
welcome.
last night and have done this a bit. I'm a lifelong resident and a product of the Burlington school system, graduated in '98. I think it's been like 25 years since I've been in this room, so it's
In a while.
hasn't changed. My primary concern is with the sound impact in where my property is. Listening to the sound impact study, it doesn't sound like it was performed in a way that really represents the impact that it would have on where I live and where my neighbors live. When a game is being played today, we can hear the PA system, the crowd, the band within our house, doors closed, windows closed, louder than our vacuum cleaner, basically. And we're fine with it. That's what we signed up for when we bought this house. But if the field were to move closer, it would be very detrimental to the just the quality of life and just our property value. So we're very, very concerned about that. We live about a half mile away from the field today. If we're to move, it would be several hundred feet away from my house, and we're not even the closest.
Do you mean if it were to move into between the two buildings?
Yeah, it would move to where the location of the school
Yeah,
is.
moving it to the practice field is a little different.
That's different.
There's a lot of
Yep.
buffer around it.
Absolutely.
It wouldn't be as noisy.
So it's my position that the town meeting should not be voting on a solution that includes moving the field to where the school is without having a sufficient study done.
We hear you.
That study should be done when games are played to have a true understanding of what that would be like for the people that live so close to the school. Someone had mentioned during the meeting last time that, a lot of folks in town had strong opinions of what was going on with Fox Hill and how we would build that school. And we listened to the people of that community, right? They didn't want the oversized school, which may have helped more people in this town, right? Like it's part of this committee's job to provide the best education for as many people as possible. But we chose the option that was best for the people of the Fox Hill School District, and others would have to wait for their new school if you lived in Pine Glen. And that's fine. I respect the opinions of those folks, and I think ultimately was the right thing to do, to respect those folks. It's a bit ironic for us because we live in a district where our kids go to Francis Wyman, which is the largest school, and I'm not sure there would have been an impact if we had twice as many kids in a school, but that's irrelevant, right? But every community can voice their concerns, and I'm glad that they're being heard, and in that case, I'm glad they were heard as well. I think there are good options that, I went to this school, so I know that there is a need for a new school. I sat in classrooms that did not have windows. I survived that, but I wish there were some windows when I was there. And I think there are good options that are a good balance that would respect the abutters and also get the kids what they need. I have 2 kids in the school system today, one who's actively in the high school, who will be here when it's being built, and then one in middle school. This will be the entirety of their time in school. This impacts my family probably more than most people in this town. We're still okay with a new school, and we're okay with a situation where she may never see the benefit of this new build. But we want to do so in a way that respects the people in the neighborhood and isn't a massive impact.
Couldn't agree with you more.
So I think there is a solution that we can get to, but we have to find some compromise here. Yeah, I mean, I'll just leave it with, the people in this room know this property probably better than anybody else. A lot of the folks behind me walk their dogs with me around the school every night. We are, the neighborhood watch of this place every evening. And I think we can do better with what we have here. And I just want to make sure that we're listened to and people understand the impact it would have on us from a sound impact, from a property value impact. I think there's lots of major concerns that the folks in this room have.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone online, Bob?
No hands raised online.
Hi.
Hello, my name's Kevin Batiglio. I live at 7 Valley Circle, and we live near the path that goes over to the gym.
Yes.
So we're pretty close to the school. We hear the PA system, we hear the kids. We just feel like if a stadium was to be dropped in the middle of the school, it would be pretty detrimental to our neighborhoods and our quality of life. So I'm hoping that everybody can come to some type of consensus that, for the kids, the taxpayers, and the people that live in the area, that if there's a chance of any of these plans passing, that everybody thinks carefully about, maybe an AR8 or a 2. I don't want to speak for everybody. If they were going to do a new build and somehow the field wasn't going to be dropped over by our houses, it just doesn't seem like it's fair to our neighborhood. We're not trying to be adversaries. It's pretty obvious that something needs to get done with the school, and it'd be a shame if nothing gets passed, and then the school becomes in disarray with the heating system, the air conditioning, and then you're stuck with an old building. Burlington's a somewhat of an affluent town. There's nice properties. It's a nice town to live in. We really love it. We're just very worried about if they put a field in this, where this is, that it would ruin our quality of life.
So at the beginning, when I did that introduction, the reason that I said I'm not even going to bring up varsity field in the middle is because, we've heard from you, so many people, and we understand that that is a really big concern. And unless we could somehow show that there'd be, limited sound or limited light, I know it's just a problem.
Right.
And so we have looked really hard. Our architect has really searched his brain, stayed up half the night, drawing pictures in his mind, trying to come up with where we could arrange things.
Yeah.
And it seems that with the new build, there's a very high likelihood that we could put a varsity field on the practice field.
Right.
But it isn't big enough for a track. So we would still have to put a track.
Right.
But, you could walk out of your house, take a walk, and walk the track. It would be pretty convenient to have a track there instead of a bus loop.
Yeah.
But,
I get it. I just have my doubts, and I'm no architect or anything, about them being able to put that field over there just because of the water. And we have 2 sump pumps, and a lot of neighbors do. And I'm not saying that's the same thing over there. I'm hoping they can, because, obviously, it'd be great if this could be some resolution that would somewhat make everybody, other than the taxes going up, which you can't help, but.
We're working on it, though. I was with the chair of conservation on Saturday discussing, and there's a real good shot that we can mitigate if there is some area that has to be.
Just say if they can't put the field there.
Exactly.
What happens, right?
Then we can't put the field there.
So would you look at AR2 or 8 seriously?
Oh, yeah, of course we would.
Because I feel like if the field gets put in our neighborhood, it's, like you said, it's going to be very difficult to get it to pass. It's probably going to be a little difficult anyhow, but I feel like my kids are out of high school now, but I feel like you need police, fire, and you need schools, or your community doesn't thrive.
Right. High school's the most important building in a town, in any town.
I totally get it. am a little bit worried about the whole process. But I appreciate you guys listening, and
listening.
hopefully we can come to some resolution. You know, it's just the PA system over there, I feel like would be a lot for all the neighborhoods. I really do. I just...
You really hear it from the school, just from this
Oh,
building?
yeah. Oh, I hear the announcements. Oh, sure. I hear the bell ring and stuff, and I'm okay with it.
The Pledge of Allegiance and
Yeah.
everything, you can hear.
I'm okay with it, though. Like, but to have the football stadium there, and then
We hear you.
there's other events. That's just not the football game on a Friday or Saturday. There's many other events and I just don't want it to be a year-long thing that we regret for the rest of our lives that we live here. So, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks
Best
for
of
your
luck.
input. Yes, a gentleman, I can't tell. It's someone in the back of the room. Come on up. Can't see you with that mask on. Welcome.
Hey, Tom Daniel, 41 Sunset Drive, right next to Building B. This question is actually for you, Chris. I'm not a speaker, so pardon me. Other than a BCAT, as an elected official, what have you done to notify all taxpayers in this town about the size and scope of this project?
Well, we've been pretty public. Maybe, can any one of you answer that? Terry?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me through that?
By the way, I'm the vice chair. Catherine took
Today,
off
you're
out
the
of
chair.
town, you know?
Yeah, so
Left me holding the bag.
you'll know that a little over a year and a half ago, town meeting appropriated $1.5 million for the school committee to form a school building committee.
I was never aware of that.
Okay.
My first awareness of this was in January when I had a letter dropped on my property
Okay.
explaining that they plan to build a school. I never heard about Fox Hill or the police station. So I don't know where the publicity of this is coming from. I mean, you would think something of the size and scope of this project, the whole town should be aware of this. And
Yeah.
I never even knew anything about BCAT until after I got this letter dropped on my property.
Well, that's why we had the letters dropped, so that if someone didn't know about it, they would in the nearby, the
But that's
abutters
just
area.
the abutters. I'm talking about the whole town should know about this.
Well, you're
I'm
right.
very concerned.
You're right. And
Listen.
I don't know how to do it any better. We have it on BCAT, we have it on Nikki's Burlington Buzz, we have it on Facebook.
You could give one of these to every taxpayer in the town.
Yeah, we
It's
could.
not going to cost $400 million to do this.
Well, I can tell you, it
I
costs a
mean,
lot.
no offense. I think this is something worthy that the whole town should be aware of.
I think Mrs. Bond wants to speak. Catherine, you have an answer?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, in addition to that, we post all of the meetings, on the town website, just like any of the other school committee meetings or the Fox Hill Building Committee. We're going to try, I think, and do a mass mailing, I hope, to, if I can coordinate it, to all of the, everyone in town somehow. So, or we're going to try and figure out something. I agree, we need to figure out to notify more people. But like I said, we're doing it the way it's been done in the past, and we certainly want to make sure that we reach as many people as possible.
That would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Other hands? Oh, there's a question online, I believe, in the chat from Barbara LaRue asking if,
We could also, sorry, Catherine again, we could probably do a town phone call to everyone too. That's probably the easiest way.
that's a
than
great
mailing.
idea.
We did one
I hadn't
already.
even thought of that.
Done that.
Oh, we did it? Okay, I guess we did it. Barbara LaRue asked if there was a rendering that shows the massing of the new builds from Doughty Way headed out of the campus. And Barbara, there isn't. I checked with Chris, and we don't have that. Maybe we can have it for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we can work that up.
Any other hands? Gentleman on the right there?
Hey guys, my name's Corey Samuelson. I live at 19 Sunset Drive, so right down the street from the castle. Everyone knows where the castle's at, right? So, I've been living in the town for about 8 years, and I got really lucky actually to live in this town. I was in school for a long time, and to save money and have a lot of student loans, it was really hard to get to start my life. So, got married, asked my wife, do you want a house or do you want to get married? She picked house. I was like, yes. So I was like, all right, I'm safe there for a little bit. So we ended up about a year on the market, about 8 years ago, which we thought was the top of the market. And we got really lucky that the house that we moved into was not available at the time. We drove by it. It had a for sale sign. The next day it went. So and then my realtor called me about 2 weeks later. It was vacation down the Cape. Came up, he goes, you gotta see this house is back in the market. Went in, put in an offer, and we were very, very lucky to have it. The family that was there were the second owners of the house. They were the DeFrancos. I don't know if that name rings anyone's bell, but they were in this town for a long, long time, and their kids went through the school system. They had 3 girls, I believe, and very successful. And when they moved, they sold their house that they owned since 1972, and they moved down to Florida. Wonderful family, met them both. So we were very lucky to continue to take care of the property that they took care of for a long time. Now I'm blessed with a beautiful wife and 2 beautiful boys, 5 and 3. They are very, very crazy and athletic. So I'm looking forward to the renovations for them into the future, because they will be able to take full advantage of what we're discussing moving forward here. I'm a big advocate for athletics. I play college sports myself. However, where we are, we hear everything, drop of a pin, and we're a little bit further back and a little bit further on the hill. However, we see and we hear everything going on, and we love to spend a lot of time around here. So both my kids currently or had gone to the Beck, and we love everyone over there. They're awesome. We spend a lot of time at the playgrounds. I take them to the turf, kicking soccer balls around, throwing footballs. We love it. However, it's just a safe amount of distance away that it doesn't impede our daily activities. And just like some other abutters have spoken about, and neighbors recently, that if that went to switch and change, if we had the varsity field closer to our neighborhood, that would be completely detrimental to our daily activities and daily living. Our house isn't super large, and it's original, and we're trying to keep it as original as possible. So it was built in 1956, and we've insulated it inside and outside, and we still hear everything, which is completely fine because it's a nice, quiet community. So that said, myself, as well as a lot of my neighbors, definitely advocating for kind of keeping the arrangements that we have in the area. Improvements, absolutely, especially to be, a continued town moving forward, to be aligned with a lot of the surrounding towns as well. So, the Bedford, the Arlington, the Lexington, and the communities over there. So I completely understand where we're headed and what we're discussing here. But thank you for taking into consideration to kind of hear our side of it, because we live it day in, day out. Spend a lot of time over here, even though it will take a long time for my kids to be part of this school. But I continue to work with a lot of kids around this area. I'm a doctor of physical therapy, and I love being part of the community and athletics. And I want them and everyone here to be successful in their ventures moving forward. Just want to make sure that it's done the correct way.
Thank you. So I'm hearing a lot of things that we've already heard, which is basically that the major concern for the abutters is the idea of putting Varsity Field in between the 2 remaining buildings. So if we can put that aside and say, let's get the final determination on, as soon as we can, on whether or not we can put it on the practice field, but have just the track without lights in this, the center of the two buildings. If that's a possibility, then of the remaining options, we have 2 ad reno options, which I really think we need to talk about because of the proximity to the neighbors and the houses and what would be in the center of the 2 buildings. It wouldn't be a quiet field. It would be a bus loop and a lot of cars, and, you know, the whole front of the building would be right there in the middle. And I think we need to talk about the ad renos as compared with the new buildings. I think the most likely options for the new buildings are on Varsity Field. However, we still have not eliminated the building on the student parking lot. So does anyone have any input on that specifically? Yes, sir, come on up.
James Capuzza, we live at number 7, Arlington. Good evening. Springtime is coming, we think.
We hope.
We hope.
Meet you.
I went out of the thought exchange because we were encouraged to do so.
Right.
And it just seems like it's almost like a referendum on people wanting AR2 or AR8. I think it's the most fiscally responsible solution as well. And I think that's what a lot of the taxpayers who are on the thought exchange are actually considering that. I don't hear a whole lot of talk about that yet. I also know that there's a lot of projects that have cost overruns. There isn't a project that gets built from the ground up that doesn't have unintended consequences. They run into something that they didn't expect, et cetera, et cetera. And the idea of building both a school and a new stadium is 2 projects. And my other concern is cost overruns. We know it's going to be 30 to 35 million, possibly more, to do one of those, to combine those. So the ad rental seems to be the best solution, fiscally responsible, and least intrusive to us neighbors. So my question is, how much weight are you looking at the thought exchange where people are really expressing their concerns about fiscal responsibility? I know there's a talk about, the disruption and noise during construction for the abutters, but that's 3 years' worth as opposed to the next 25 years if there's a stadium. So that's kind of our concern. Thank you.
I have to make a comment about the thought exchange. The thought exchange can be logged into by anyone repeatedly. So if someone really wants to make a point, instead of logging in once with their opinion, they can log in 10 times or 20 times, and it looks like 10 or 20 different people who all have this opinion. So personally, I don't put much weight on the thought exchange. I think we have to adjust it so that people can only log in once. But
follow-up question.
Go ahead.
It seems like the focus has shifted from building a new school, which we need.
Right.
But we don't need a new field.
No, so let me try to explain
I understand
that.
the idea that it has a shelf life of 10 years and we're going to be that much further in. But you even brought up the point. At that point, how much does it cost to renovate the field 10 years from now or 7 years from now versus building a whole $30 million one with underground parking?
No,
we don't want to talk.
there's no underground parking. There's an area under the building that already exists, and it's encased in concrete, and it has a garage door.
Okay.
And you could park in there right now.
There is a cost associated with that.
Well, there's a cost only that it has to be dealt with, no matter what option we go with. But we're not...
Either one of those options is going to be a different cost.
Right.
Not the same cost if it's made to be into parking versus just
we're not
we
going
fill
there.
it in or whatever.
We're not building an underground parking garage. That's it. If you wanted to use the space for that, you could. It wouldn't cost anything. You could drive in there right now. But that is, we know people don't like the sound of it, and that means we're not even going to consider it.
My other question is, the actual building architectural design at some point, I honestly think there's a lot of, have a nice facade for where the abutters are looking at a new school build. We won't mind it because it's going to look a lot different than this one. And it'd be kind of nice to see something growing, a new edifice that, we all get a chance to look at and enjoy, and not just a stadium. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to address a few of those points. There's a difference of opinion about whether we should do ad reno or whether we should build new. And so the question is, why is there a difference of opinion? Does one cost more than the other? Well, yeah, but for an example, if you were to go with whichever option costs this much versus another option that costs this much, how much would that affect an individual? So I'm going to put my friend Doug here, who is the chairman of Ways and Means, I'm going to put him on the spot and say, Doug, in tax bills, when we talk about the average homeowner would have about a $1,000 increase, that means that the person who lives in a little ranch that was built in 1956, when the year my house was built, they're going to have a lower cost than the person who moved into town last year and bought a $2 million house. They're going to have a bigger piece of the taxes to pay. So if we were to go with the average cost of an ad reno and the average cost of a new build, roughly, I know you can't give me exact numbers, but roughly how much difference would that be on an average tax bill?
Well, the spread is, in the initial cost estimates, I think it was about 18%. You can do the math with any project that you see projected. For any project that the town builds that we bond, we generally bond for 25 years. We say we're going to do it at 5%. We may be able to beat that a little. But the calculation is for every $1 million that the town bonds, it costs the average taxpayer $3.34 per year. So you can multiply it times 300 if it's a $300 million project. You can multiply it times 180 if it's a $180 million project. So as we get new cost estimates, which I think are coming pretty soon, we'll be able to put a little finer point on what the various projects will cost the average taxpayer. To touch on what Ms. Monaco said, because of the value of houses in Burlington and because we have had such a push on tearing down small houses and building these giant houses that are $1.5 million or $2 million, a majority of the houses in Burlington are below the average, that we use. And so it is a little skewed. So a large number of people, more than 50% of the people, would be paying less than what we promote as an average, the impact on an average taxpayer. But still, you can look at your house valuation on your property tax when it comes in every quarter and see where you fall versus I think we're at about 775,000, I don't know if it's on there, for this past year for the average residential value. So if your house, not what your neighbors sold their house for, because that's going to be quite a bit more than what your tax rate is based on. But if you look on your property tax bill, you can see what your house has been appraised at from the tax assessor, and then you can see, am I above average, am I below this average number? And the math is $3.34 per $1 million. So as we get more numbers, it'll be easier to look at that and say, what's the difference? If a new build is 320 and a ad reno is 300, the difference is going to be 20 million times $3. I mean, 20 times $3.34 per year. That's the delta. So you can look pretty easily, that seems to be the best way to make the comparison.
So 20 times $3?
Yes, 60.
So I think the point that I'm trying to make, and I think Doug just helped me to make it, is that, let me give you an example. I got my tax bill. I'm one of those people that pays it every quarter. I don't, pay it and have the bank do it. I pay it every quarter. And my most recent tax bill was $1,700 and something. I don't know what. I just know it was 17 something. So if the high school added $1,000 to that, and of course it adds it 1 year, it doesn't add it again and again and again, it adds it once and stays there. And then if we picked a model that was a slight amount more, like even if it was like $200 a year more, my quarterly tax bill would be $50 a quarter more. And I honestly can't tell you if my $1,700 and X dollar tax bill was $1,725 or $1,775. My point is, it's not, the difference between the two is not so much that it's problematic for a lot of people in town. And for that reason, I think we have to look at what is the best project. And if we decide that we have to cut back because it's too expensive, that makes perfect sense. But I think what we really need to do is decide what is the best project. What's it going to look like? How close is it going to be to other houses? What view are the neighbors going to have? What is the best plan for the town? And that's, we accept you don't want the field in the middle. Okay, got it. You don't want underground parking? Got that too. Let's look at the options that are there and pick out what's best for everybody. Sharon.
Sharon Laurie, Precinct 3. Thank you.
Hi, Sharon.
Just a little thing on the tax.
On the what?
The tax. $1,700, we use your example, $1,700, it goes up $1,000, or $800, okay?
Right, depends on the house.
Okay. Let me talk, you can, so it goes up, okay? But what you're not telling everyone, you have the Fox Hill taxes, you have the police station taxes, you have all these other taxes.
That's right.
And so $1,000 may become $1,500 or may become $1,200.
I think the Fox Hill and the police station combined were $350.
$340, $360 at the moment, because there may be cost overruns.
And we got the Fox Hill numbers last night. We're right on target, so that's good.
At the moment, you're on target, right? Thank you. But we know things could happen, especially today. A lot of things are happening, okay?
Yeah, I'll say.
So I just want people to understand that there's a bunch of things happening in Burlington all at the same time, and you need to be cognizant of that. And so the problem that I'm hearing today, you say you hear us, I appreciate that. You clearly hear us about the football field being placed over in our backyards. And so if you hear that so clearly, is that something you can take off the table today?
Personally, I can't tell you what the rest of the committee will do. Personally, I would.
Well, now I remember when they took Corporate Drive off the table.
Right.
It was at 9:25 p.m.
Yes, it was.
Dr. Conti basically said he was thinking, and you guys took a vote. So can we think and take a vote?
No, this is not that kind of a meeting. This is a public forum.
Okay. So the next meeting?
We can talk about it at the next meeting, yes.
You can do that, okay. So I'm concerned that you spent $1.5 million. I'm concerned that we still do not have a viable plan.
But we do.
I'm concerned that we do not have a viable plan, because I think if you ask the people here today to take a vote, you may not get the vote that you think you're going to get.
Well,
And
I'm not gonna ask anyone for a vote.
I want to be in a position to help our students, to help our community get a new high school that makes sense. Maybe, perhaps, this space is not the right space. Maybe you need to look further. You have so many restrictions here that are causing so much havoc for everyone.
Yes, we understand, and we have looked.
But things are constantly evolving, and I think if they look a little bit harder, there may be some new properties that have opened up that they can consider. You have $1.5 million that are being spent to do this feasibility study, right? I'd rather you spend the $1.5 million, every penny of it, and instead of us spending $300 million for the next 30 years of our lives.
Sharon, let's have Terry talk about the sites.
Sure. So well, I'll try and address a couple of your questions, Sharon. You know, one, we haven't spent the entire 1.5 million. There's a schedule. Basically, we have a process that I can go through it if people are interested in that. It's really formulated with a similar process that Fox Hill went through, where you bring an architect on board, we do a bunch of existing condition studies, we formulate some design options. Part of that process is to look at sites within the town, which we did. We were unable to find any parcels of land that the town currently owns or that are suitable for a high school building project. And so it was determined that we would focus on this property to figure out how we could build a new school, whether or not it was an ad reno or a new school on the existing property, which is obviously challenging, but this is something that communities across the Commonwealth face, where they have to utilize the property that they own to reconfigure their site. And so part of this exercise has been to look at those types of options and an ad reno. As you move through this process, a committee typically, or not typically, comes down to a preferred option. That preferred option is then put into what's called schematic design, where we come up with a full-fledged design that will then have a specific cost estimate. That is what ultimately gets put to the town. And so right now, we are in the throes of determining that. Several options have been eliminated. We're down to these 5. I don't think, Sharon, frankly, we can just, I mean, the committee could say stop, and which we would then stop, but we don't have other properties. No one has identified those. We tried to find something across the street. For a variety of reasons, that project or that possibility was eliminated, and we are currently in the throes of trying to determine which is the best option.
Doug, did you want to address part of Sharon's questions?
I'll try. No, I do. I think the $1.5 million, the feasibility study, as Terry touched on, we asked them to then go out and come up with multiple options.
Yes.
So we started with 10, we added another one, maybe 12, and added another one. When we selected the OPM, and again then when we selected the architects, if you go back and watch those meetings, and they're available on BCAT, if you go back and look at all the information that was submitted to us, we tried to select groups that had built schools on difficult-shaped properties, had done renovations where they built right next to an existing building where students, we started with the premise of, let's try to look at what some of these problems are going to be and then hire people who have done it before. We also looked at what their track record was for building without cost overruns. Did they come in at or under budget? Did they come in at or on time or early? We really took all of that into consideration, and these are big firms that have long track records of coming in at or under budget and on time. And so you're right, we could have cost overruns, but there's considerable money built into that. We followed the MSBA process because they've done a good job of honing that process so that you don't get surprised. And so it does include some considerable built-in money for overruns. So we don't expect to see the project come in over budget. As far as finding another space, I think Terry answered that pretty well. There just aren't any. You can say, yeah, there can always, the month after we break ground on whatever we decide to do, a perfect place could come on the market, but we can't plan on that. Once we set the process in place, we have to say, what are the current conditions? And in the current conditions, it's been decided that this is the best location for a variety of reasons. So then we have to come up with what's the best option. I think it's important to also go back. It's hard not to be defensive as a member of the committee because I'm glad that the Abutters got very involved, and I understand why. When I saw the picture of the football field in the place of this, in this location, I said out loud, that will never pass. That's not going to happen. But man, it's cool looking because it is. And so, but remember, that was just one option of many. It just stood out because it definitely was on the edge of, this is something that would be totally out of the box thinking. That's what we asked for, out of the box. So from the very beginning, I just left and thought, that will never happen. It's super cool looking, and if you took all the other things off, that's fine. And I understand as an abutter why I would be like, holy cow, that can't happen. But it's unfortunate that it was presented to the neighbors as this decision has already been made, because it has not, and it was far from it. It's also unfortunate that it's been presented to the neighbors that they, the famous they, are going to build underground, this $18 million underground parking garage. Again, out of the box thinking. The space is there.
I'll get them.
The space is there, that there is money involved with that, but there's money involved with dealing with that space no matter what we do. That little grassy area that you see, if we just keep it grass, it's going to cost several $1 million to fill in the bunker that's underneath that is so big that it has its own forklift. We bought a new forklift for it a couple of years ago. It's a big area that is dry and secure, and so.
And you could park there.
And so the architect said, hey, it'd be easy, you could park there. It wouldn't really cost that much, and it adds another 170 parking spaces. So it was an option. Not decided on, not something that we asked for. It's just one more option of these are all the things that could happen. We are listening, absolutely, and we're not going to do something that upsets the neighborhood or the taxpayer, because we need 50.1% of this town that comes to vote for it.
That's right.
Our job is to come up with the plan that we think will satisfy the town. It's going to be expensive. I wish it wasn't.
I wish as well, but let me help you out
Terry
a little.
wants to complete his answer.
Yeah, no, and I as this is a community forum, like I'm used to not being on microphones and sitting in a circle. So Sharon, if you wouldn't mind, we've shown these renderings, and I've been worried showing the ad renos, in particular along Arlington Road, which you live
Yes,
on.
I do.
And the one gentleman said, and it was actually music to my ears when he said, well, we wouldn't mind seeing a new facade of that size, because it is going to be impressive. And, you know, having your input and all the residents along Arlington Road will help, not me, will help the committee understand that impact, because I have heard a lot of feedback from the Sunset Drives, from the folks on the back side of this building. Whereas there is Anna Road, there is Arlington Street. Like, I want to make sure that we understand that those folks are going to be impacted as well. So as a person living there, I'm just curious your impressions of what you've seen tonight.
So I look at the solar panels every morning. I can hear the Pledge of Allegiance and all that stuff, okay? Because I'm right there.
It's going to be even closer.
So my concern is I don't think you have the right plan yet.
Okay.
That's my concern. Now, can it be at the high school? Well, let me back up. When you talk about the football field in the middle, that thing was pretty cool. You knew it would never pass. But you have 115 residents that are having heartburn over this. So while you may think it's a little bit comical, and I get it, for us, it's not comical at all.
No,
Sarah,
but
we
my
know.
point is, I don't think it's comical at all, but I also think it's unfortunate that it was portrayed as a decision that had been made, or this is going to happen. That's unfortunate.
It wasn't.
That's not how it was portrayed. It was portrayed that there are 5 options left on the table, and it looks like maybe this may be a serious one that they're looking at. No one ever said that this, from our perspective, the Abutters' perspective, there was no misinformation. I'm an analyst, okay? So I deal with facts all day long.
It was serious until we heard from the Abutters, and then it became not serious.
You could have said that.
Yeah, just as Catherine. I just wanted to say, Sharon, that, again, we're like, we're listening to the Abutters, but this has been we were at 14 months in before we started hearing from the Abutters, and I'm glad we're hearing from the Abutters. But like I said, we've been, and Terry mentioned this, and Doug mentioned it, we are following the MSBA process. It's a proven process. And I understand that you aren't happy with the 5, that we have on the table. But again, we started out with 12 or 13, and as a committee, we went through and analyzed everything bit by bit and piece by piece, and analyzing what we thought would be best for, again, the community, the students, the teachers, a whole group of representing, people from across town on the committee. And we are, throughout this process, which is the MSBA process, we have come down to these last 5 options. And we haven't gone any slower than any other, town that uses this process, the MSBA process, and we're not going any faster. We are following this exact same process because it's a proven process. So again, I don't know how to make you happy that, you don't like the 5 options we have, but it would be very detrimental to try and start all over again.
Oh, okay, so the 14 months, you already heard someone said the first time? Yes.
Sharon, can you, finish up in the next couple of minutes so that we can get to other people?
Yes, I'm just responding to
Go ahead.
the information that's coming forth. So 14 months, we didn't know about this for 14 months, maybe that's because you were trying to push through Fox Hill. So maybe if things had happened differently, maybe this would have a different result. I'm just letting you know that I'm very concerned, and if you can guarantee us today, or the committee that is here at the moment, that you're going to vote no for the whole varsity football field to be at the teachers' parking lot, you would make some people feel better. Can you do that?
We can't do it today because we have to have a vote at a regular building committee meeting.
No, I heard that.
But I think that I'm assuring you that we understand and we hear you and we get it. This isn't going to pass the debt exclusion if the neighbors don't like it. So please accept that as some sort of assurance that we get it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sherry, did you have your hand up, or?
She didn't answer my question.
Oh,
Somebody else? Are there more? I'm not a direct abutter.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Just
I represent Precinct 3, which all of the folks here are, and I'm a town meeting member, Sherry Ellis. So I had a couple of technical questions or
go ahead.
things, and then a comment as well. In the presentation, it was mentioned that you were looking at the current FEMA maps for the wetlands and things. Current meaning the 26 that's coming out, or? Yes. Or current as in what we use today?
No, so there's a current proposed coming out version of the FEMA maps that are still not official, and as been alluded to, there's a lot of commotion happening down in DC that
really?
I don't know anything about that.
The best information we have right now is the ones that are proposed. And,
that's the ones that you're referencing. Okay, that's what I just wanted to know, whether or not they pass or do whatever.
Yeah.
But you're aware of, because there are changes from what was done before. Okay, so that was a question I had on that particular thing. And with that, it sounds like there's still a thought process. It sounds like the stadium track or stadium and field is kind of off the table, but you mentioned still a track perhaps being there.
Would have to be there. There's no other place for it.
And so track comes with field events. And has there been consideration that currently the field events are across in the practice fields across the little Dolly's Way, and it's doable, and they currently do that. But if you're going to put the track up where it is, where are the field events going to be if the football field is where there's...
Is it accurate that we can have two fields, one here, one here? So we'd still have a practice field there for those events?
Well, I would, so if you go that route of making a track up in this zone, one of the reasons you do the field events across the street on natural grass, and this happens in my town too, is when you have a turf, you can't do those things there. So I would suggest that the committee and the town look at making the portion of the area, the infield of the track, just a grass surface so that you can have track and field where track and field happens together up here, right? So where they throw the shot puts or the javelins or whatever they need to do, it's in the center of the track up here, but it's not lit. It's not like field sports or anything like that.
There's consideration for
how you
do that.
I would suggest that you do that instead of having track way up here, but you could always have the option of the field events happening down there as well.
And the track would be MIAA acceptable. All these are considerations and just questions that I'm throwing out there that they can still have the tournaments and things like that. Okay. Yep. My last comment would be about the, I think a few people have referenced it, communication. 14 months in, a lot of people don't know what is going on. And you have a ballot question that's going to be coming out about this.
About this?
Eventually.
Oh, eventually,
right.
Yeah.
So in order to be proactive about that, the U.S. mail is the way to identify residents and to let people know. And I really think that was something that should, especially for the direct abutters, a long time ago, that should have been put out there. When any project comes to town, when any developer comes to town, direct abutters are notified by U.S. mail. It costs money, I know that, it costs money, but that's how people load. We don't do Buzz and BCAT and all of that. Many people don't.
I think Terry's currently working on a mailer for the town. Is that true, Terry?
That is correct.
Okay, so I mean, that's the way to get to people, and make it so that they're aware of where to go for resources, because there are many resources out there. A lot of people just don't know where they are. Yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you.
This is Catherine. Terry,
Yes.
I have a question for you. Again, since we're following the MSBA process, I mean, I know we did a mailer to the abutters, and I'm trying to remember if, again, is that kind of we did it at the timing that's expected per MSBA process, notifying the abutters, or did we? I'm trying to recall Was it because we came up with the new design and knew they'd be affected? If you could refresh my memory, I'd greatly appreciate that, because again, we did do a US mail mailer to the abutters before, again, this particular meeting, which we put together very quickly because, again, people had requested it.
Yeah, so every town is different, every project is different, and clearly here, I'll acknowledge that using the US mail probably would have been a better idea. I will say that with a large majority of projects of this sort, you come to the preferred option, and then that is what you bring to the town to get all of their input throughout the course of schematic design. Clearly, that model has not worked here, and I'm the first one to acknowledge that. But that is not atypical, that you come with your preferred option, and then we have 4 to 6 months to say this is the option that we're building on, and there's a much more robust outreach with the community at large to either build support for that option. And so I will say that, and folks have referenced it, there's a lot going on, Washington aside, there's a lot going on in Burlington. Having sat through a number of town meetings here where the focus was Fox Hill, and then the focus was the police station. And I do know that in those meetings, many town meeting members referenced the need for and acknowledged that the high school was the next domino to fall. So, I get it. Not everyone is online. Not everyone gets or is interested in receiving that. And so we need to do better in order to get general information out to the public. But I will say that the project website is available to all and has been available. We do post all of our meetings. They are monthly. The public has the ability to reach out to the project team. That includes the organization I work for, that includes the architects. And so, I acknowledge that, a US mailing probably should have gone out. I guess my interpretation of what has occurred at town meeting is that this has been wildly known, and clearly that's not the case.
Sarah.
Hi, Sarah Olinsky. I am not an abutter, so I guess I'm sort of a gate crasher here, but I am a town meeting member. Eventually, Precinct 5, this will eventually come before me, and I'll have to make a decision. I really, really, really want to support it. I know we need a new high school. My oldest graduated in 2019, and then 3 others have followed her, and I know firsthand the shortcomings of this building. Totally support this project. I know it has a huge price tag. That's also okay. I'm okay with my taxes going up. Just want to start with that. What has confused me about this process is I dropped in on the community meeting 2 weeks ago or so and immediately felt like I was in the middle of a sales pitch. I heard about lighting studies, sound studies. There was a strong bias for somebody coming out of just, not knowing much about this, that there was already an option that people were really leaning towards. And that was like an off-putting moment. Like, I looked at those 5 plans and thought, AR2, AR8, they look really good. I saw how Marshall Simons went from being really dumpy to really awesome with just a reno.
Right.
We don't need to have the mindset that new is always best, and we're somehow shortchanging our students or not being future thinking and always thinking new construction has got to be the best. You can do a gorgeous job with reno, and I support it even if it's really expensive. I love the idea of a green area between pre-existing buildings. Love the idea of keeping the auditorium. So many good things to be said about reno. But what I'd really like from the process is somebody to show me all 5, say, these are the good things, these are the bad things, in a not self-serving way, not trying to persuade me, but letting me see all the information and me come to a conclusion. That would be really an amazing thing. I felt like I've I just bristle when I feel like somebody's trying to sell me something and I haven't had a chance to really think about the pros and cons. So I guess I favor ad reno because it seems like a better use of resources. I'm always trying to, be green, and the idea of ripping up a field that has, okay, maybe only 3 years left on it. Still, those are 3 years. I don't like that kind of idea of throwing away something that is still functional. I had 4 kids that ran track, so I'm attached to that track. Anyway, that's just my angle. I'd love to hear more clear-headed explanation of this is what it would look like if we did A, B, C, D, E, and this is the good things and the bad things. So thank you.
Okay, first of all, I'm going to say if you want to hear those, try to come to the regular meetings. I'll watch them. But I'm going to go out on a limb here, and hey, I've been on a few limbs in my day. I clearly have a preference for new build, and I will admit that. I think new build is the right thing to do, even if tearing up the field is a bad thing, and I agree with you, it's too bad if we waste a couple of years of the grass, the fake grass, whatever you call it, turf. The reason I have a preference for the new build is multifold. And I could take an hour to tell you about it, but I won't, because I can do it in a couple of minutes. A new build is going to give us a beautiful building that is designed to be a beautiful building, to have everything in it that is needed, designed with the right direction for the light coming in the right way. It'll have the right direction for solar, for anything that, makes for better green. And it'll be like the Fox Hill School. You plan it, you build it, you design it, you love it. You get what you want. If we do the ad reno, which I totally agree we could do, and yes, we did at Marshall Simons. In fact, I chaired the building committee for Marshall Simons. I'm very proud of it. But in this case, if we do an ad reno, we're going to have, sticking out towards Arlington Road, we're going to have a building, the back of a building, not the front. The front's going to be, in the middle of this field area. We're going to have the back of a building. One side of it's going to be 3 stories high. The other side of it's going to be 4 stories high. We're going to have a loading dock. We're going to have a roadway that goes between Arlington Road and this triangular building. It's going to be really funny looking to me. I mean, they'll do the best they can to make it great and beautiful and classy, and we have a great architect. But it's odd. It's different. And you drive around the building, and we jury-rigged the middle to work out for a parent thing, and then a bus loop on the other side, and then you've got part of the old building here and part of the old building here. And this is going to take 2 to 4 years, no matter what. You have to build this new wing, move the kids into it, tear down part of the school. All of the kids that are going to school for those years are going to get disrupted. If I lived on Arlington Road, I would not want to look at a 4-story building with a loading dock, frankly. So my preference is new build. It might cost me on my taxes another $30, $50 a quarter. I don't care, because I think it's the right thing to do. But I'm only one person on this committee, and I want to do the best thing for the people. I'm not going to be here in 20 years. But the rest of the town should have a nice high school for the next 50 years. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, in a way, our conversation just now has recapped my original issue. That I still have yet to hear what would be really awesome about AR2 and AR8 also.
I'll make a deal with you.
All right.
The very next meeting, we're going to go over all of the options in detail with the pros and the cons.
That would be great. Thank you.
Everybody
That's all I
to
can ask
see.
for at this
Can I
point.
just
Yeah,
comment?
Chris, go ahead.
So that information is already out there.
I've tried to look at these plans.
Right here.
They're a bit vague.
It's on It's on most of the slides, and it's actually, I don't know how to, can you share this real quick?
So it's we have the bigger ones, but on it lists the pros and cons for each of the ones. If you go on the website, and again, sorry to keep saying this, but you can pick on the design views, and each one of them will say, here are the pros, here are the cons.
Okay,
'Cause
that's
that really opened up my eyes for all these
good.
as well.
Thanks.
It's also,
I'm gonna stop hogging the mic here.
it's also on the, like I said, it's on the floor plans we have tonight. Upcoming building committee meetings also with all of the granular working groups. We've been going through a decision-making matrix that has how many items on it? It's like 100 and something items to granularly go through and look at each of these options with like a really fine-tooth comb. Like this is kind of rolled up pros and cons. That when we start talking about that at the next building committee meeting and showing that work, you're going to be able to get a lot of data input from that and say, this is how the committee is ranking those in terms of like on a scale of 0 to 5. It's got does this option accommodate community programs better than the other one, right? And so you can rank it and you can kind of see how it goes. This committee has done the work to analyze that, and of course, it's the thing's not meant to say this is the decision you should make, but it's meant to be these are data points and this is a guide, and it should be used to the maximum extent that you see for yourself on how that
Chris,
lays
this is Catherine.
into- yeah.
Can you give her, like, just everyone, just kind of an idea, like, there are different sections, right? So
Yeah.
there's a sustainability section, there's a section, on the teaching space with the teachers and students. I mean, it's a very, very, each section has several questions, and you rank them as one of, as these breakout groups. So, Sarah, it would probably help you a lot, to hear what that is at the next meeting, if that helps you analyze things, and you may still end up thinking AR8's better, right?
Yeah. And I think one of the last things I'll just comment on the community forum that you came to and you felt like you're getting the sales pitch is one of the things that actually was happening in that moment. And if it felt that way, I think there's no intention for that at all. What we were getting from the abutters and the responses we were hearing and the concerns we were hearing for weeks leading up to that community forum. And I think as a team, we sat down and said, we want to address those first because these people are coming to hear and know that we're trying to listen and give data points, not, be combative or something, but just say, we hear you, we're trying to get the data, we're trying to do the best we can. And so in that very moment, of course, the biggest concern for most of these people here is that there's a field being put in the middle of the building. And so when the data points come out that say we're trying to listen to that and respond before we go into any other new information, it can feel that way. But I just want you to know it wasn't meant to be that. It was meant to be, we're listening, we're trying to give you what you want, what you're interested in first before we go and do the rest of it. And in hindsight, maybe that could be revised in the future, but that's just a kind of point of clarity on that, how that was built. Yeah.
All right, Bob, did you want to address something?
I don't want to address something. When you allow it, can I read some questions that are put into the chat?
Is that what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I saw a question from an abutter, so I had one that I
Let
was
Megan
gonna
go first, and then if there's something she doesn't cover.
Okay.
The comment that I saw was, "Hello, I live in the Spruce Hill neighborhood. Which of the options best addresses the current traffic issues that surrounding neighborhoods experience during drop-off, pickup, and large sporting events? Will there be future consideration to discourage use of surrounding neighborhoods as pickup and drop-off locations?"
Is that what you had, Bob?
Well, there's a couple, but that is one of them, yes.
Okay. I don't know the answer to that question. Does anyone know the answer to that question?
I think the short answer is that I think probably most options are going to be similar to what you have today because we're not adding or subtracting entry points to the site. So everybody's coming and going the same way. When we try to revamp the site, like I was talking about earlier with traffic, and we try to separate cars and buses, I think we can probably make the situation better. make it more efficient and safer. I'm sorry?
You're talking about drop-off and pick-up.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about too.
In the neighborhoods, not on the site.
Yeah.
So nothing that you do on the site, whether you do it or you don't do it, we're talking about what recourse do we have if there are 40 cars on our street at 8:30 a.m. and at 3 p.m.
So that isn't, the only thing that would change automatically by virtue of the building is if you move the building, the kids aren't going to get dropped off in the same place going to school in the morning. As far as sporting events, I don't know the answer. I mean, I think it's something that could be looked into, could bring the police in to try to help with traffic issues, but
Excuse me, Catherine, I think Mark Sullivan had mentioned that we have the police that we could probably communicate with. I mean, you probably could communicate with them now for any of the sporting events and see if they can block off the street. So, I mean, you don't have to wait to ask for that help whenever something new or reno goes in, right? You could probably communicate now with the school and see if you can get some of that behavior changed.
Okay, are there other questions? Yeah, Chris, you want to finish?
Yeah, I didn't get to finish. I think what I was trying to get to is to say that if we can make things more efficient on the site, then we have an opportunity to recast to parents who currently, I don't know if I'm being heard, but I think we have a chance to recast to parents who do park in these neighborhoods and do drop their kids off and things like that. If we can make it better on site, then we have an opportunity to recast to them how their options and make it a little bit safer and better. Then that may have an effect. But in terms of what the project can do for Valley Circle or those neighborhoods over there, I don't know that any project we have directly impacts that in that way, but I do think we have an opportunity to make on-site better, which could entice people to change habits, but that's the best I can offer.
It's seen as a shortcut, so you may not.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, is there another question, Bob, online?
Yeah, there's a couple. Let me see, this one says, I am not an abutter. Is there an updated timeline for when the final design will be chosen, given that more information needs to be gathered from conservation and/or sound noise perspective?
Chris?
I can answer that. So the current schedule that's been put to the building committee is, I think we have another meeting on the 13th. There's going to be one scheduled on the 27th. Those are both in March. And then there's a meeting on April 10th where our current schedule calls for a preferred option to be voted on by that time. So that's up to the committee to determine if they're going to stick to that schedule or delay it in some fashion, but that's the schedule that's in front of them now.
Okay, now, I know there are people that want to speak, and I want to get through it because I turned into a pumpkin fairly early, but Millie, you have your hand up?
Yep.
And then Maureen after Millie? Or Joanne, you two pick.
Oops. Excuse me. Don't like to keep banging. Millie Nash, an abutter and a town meeting member for Precinct 3. I originally wrote out what I was going to say so I would stay to 3 minutes, but some of the things have been addressed, so I'm more interested in looking at a couple of the pictures there that I had questions about. I thought other people might as well. The first picture that I would like to look at would be the one that has the new high school on the football field where it is now, because I had a couple of questions, and if you put up the slide with the football field, high school, I could ask the question.
Can you guys put it up?
No, I want it where, it was one with a high school.
Which one? This one or this?
Hang on, let me tell you. It
Kirby
was,
one or the non-Kirby one?
The one, the view from Cambridge Street. Oh, the view from Cambridge.
This one right here.
Yeah, that one isn't exactly
The question I had about that is one that I have worried about in this whole, where are we going to put things? And I look at that, and I would like to know if that is the building. I wondered if it would fit with the architecture we have, and the answer is yes, it looks just about as bad. But
I think the picture is misleading.
Where is the front of this building? It isn't clear whether it's facing Cambridge Street or the other way. I think that aesthetically, it doesn't cut the mustard, which is good because I think the football field should stay where it is. So that isn't an issue. The other picture that I wanted to look at was the one.
Do you want to pause there and let me answer, or do you want to keep going?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure, go ahead, Chris.
The one that showed the water with the school as it is now, where there was the Meadowbrook, because there's something that my son-in-law, who happens to be a hydrogeologist, said every time we walk around the school in the spring or the summer. He said, it's very interesting, and
Chris, maybe you can answer them both after she asks.
Okay, there we go. It's very interesting that there's Meadowbrook that's down by Valley Circle, but if you're walking close to the house that's on the swamp side at the end of Sunset Drive, immediately behind their back property line, all summer, there is a stream. And the question is, where is it coming from? And it has to be coming from the ledges under the high school, under the road, and out. And that's, I think, why that concrete underfacing is there. My daughter was telling me all about it, and it is big enough to be a garage, but there could be a danger if you fool with that. The water table for both the high school and the Abutters all the way around may suffer again. So those are the two pictures I was interested. The other thing, and I'm just going to give you this too, I can be brief. I was originally so thrilled that there were so many options, but then I was talking to someone who said of being on, who had been on the original school committee site when they were trying to put the 1972 school, and they were miserable because it was the only place big enough to do it,
Right.
and everything they tried to do wouldn't work. And they put it where they put it because it seemed the only place that it could go. And I think that that is something we have to really think seriously about, because so many people I talked to have said at the last big meeting, it was said, this building, all of it is structurally sound, and parts of it show up in a lot of the plans. And if that is the case, particularly when we're in times that nationally are very uncertain, tariffs and all kinds of things, when we have a school, frankly, you should be asking for a raise for all that you have to do already. To have two schools under construction is almost, I don't think you're getting paid adequately.
Really?
But so many people said, why can't we just work bit by bit? What is broken, we fix it. The heating and cooling should be fixed yesterday. You know, the chemistry lab is antique. Fix it. But if we fix the bits and pieces, I think what we don't realize is how good the school committee was, that they took a building that was built for 600 people per class, and as the population went down, turned the spaces into beautiful other functions of the town, which we absolutely need. And I think that, at least for now, we have all these plans. One of the reasons I worry about the field, the practice field, is I remember a number of years ago, we put big bucks at town meeting in filling it with topsoil. I used to go ice skating there every winter. But I'll tell you now, if you walk, you're up to your knees in water, because it's a swamp and it's going to run into real problems. The stadium looks great. It's a wonderful entrance to the city. I think we should begin to appreciate what we have, keep these plans, so when we finish the 100 years that this building was supposed to last, we'll have some other options. I appreciate all you've done. I don't think you're paid enough, but I don't want you raising my taxes. But I have
Really, my $1,000 a year.
Well, that's because we pay you so well. But thank you for listening.
Maureen?
Chris, did you want to address her question on the entrance on the map, where the entrance to the building would be and what's facing?
Let's hear what Maureen
Street?
says, and Chris can address whatever he wants.
This is a little different this time. I actually want to address the misinformation that we keep hearing, because, Burlington's a small community when you've been living here for almost 30 years, and I'm hearing a lot of it. And
what's the misinformation?
Well, that's just it. I don't know. I mean, it's coming, they're saying it's coming from us. So I don't know what the misinformation is. I mean, I could take a stab at it, but we've discussed some of these, the parking, I know that's going away. But we took everything that's been out in print, right from the website, right from the meetings, and nowhere else.
The options.
The options,
yes.
Right. And that's it. But we're hearing, like even at the meeting in the auditorium, people were saying, yeah, I hear there's a lot of misinformation. So we're coming to hear what has to be said. Well, I'm glad that they were coming in to hear what, about the project. It's too bad everyone didn't know about it before. But it's this misinformation. And again, I do not know what the misinformation is, but someone is saying that the abutters are giving misinformation. And if that's true, then tell us what that is. Because I, for one, don't want to be spreading fake news, as they say. No, I do not. And so if somebody knows that we're saying something wrong, please let us know. But we've also been hearing that we're selfish, and we're a community. We want the kids to have a school. We do. I mean, when my daughter was going through school, she went to the middle school when it was being renovated, and went through Burlington High School. We would have loved to have a new school then, but it wasn't in the cards. So it's not that we don't want a new school. We want them to have windows, and yes, we need new chemistry labs. We need all of that. But we are concerned, as you know, I don't even have to go over it again. We lose sleep over what can happen, especially being on the water table, going downhill from the school. It's scary. It's downright scary. And it's, we're still one community, and I know I keep hearing, what's best for the town. Okay, that's just remember that, and I really appreciate you saying, Mrs. Monaco, that you don't want to, you want to take it off the table. I'm just afraid about putting it in that practice field and then finding out that it's too wet, and then where are we? We're back to square one.
Okay, so there were two issues there. One was the misinformation, which I think Doug would like to answer, and then on the water, I think Chris should address that. So go ahead, Doug.
I probably used the misinformation word first, so I'll talk, at least in tonight.
Okay.
And I also want to apologize to Sharon if I got defensive. I swore coming in here I wasn't going to be defensive, and then I felt defensive. And so
being passionate.
That's much better.
I'm nothing if not passionate about these things. Very clearly, the abutters' input is critical, and it affects you all more than any of the rest of us. The rest of us, it affects us because we're going to get a new school in town or not. We're trying, and we hope to come up with something that people will support. And so it's very important. When I talk about misinformation, the thing that bothered me or concerned me is I can point specifically to when we had I think it's called the Civic Expo, when we were in the school cafeteria there, and all the departments of the town and whatever, and so that we did have, the building committee had a thing there, and I had a few abutters talk to me, and they all said, we were told that it's already been decided, and that there's going to be a football stadium here, and that there's going to be this huge underground parking facility where they're going to be blasting, and they're going to be, and people were really upset about that, and to even say,
It
no,
really
that's
seemed
not-
like that was, the choice had been made.
Yeah,
It
and-
really seemed like that, because that picture was up the whole time. And it was,
Yeah, so
yeah,
my
I didn't go to the expo, but I was at the meeting where,
Yeah,
and I
if
walked
in the
away
end-
thinking, this is done.
If in
They've
the
made
end, it was the thing that got all the people to get more interested and talk to each other and spread the word, because clearly we didn't do a good enough job of spreading the word, then it's probably worth it. But it was upsetting to me to see so many people upset, thinking that these big decisions had been made when it was in the very beginning stages of this is just one option.
Yeah,
And there's
we were
a bunch
upset.
of them out there. And so that was my misinformation part, was I just felt like some things were getting spread like they do. It's what we tell our kids don't do, and then as adults, we all do it. But it just gets spread around, and I thought that was unhealthy for the project.
All right, Chris, would you address the water issue, please?
Yeah, would you just restate it for me so I can make sure I answer what?
I live at Six Valley Circle. We are on the water table.
Yep.
When you look at the green, that's our side yard.
Right.
So when something happens at the school, we feel it. So, and it goes downhill, even if it's, a good-sized rain, it fills up our swales, and we've been asking for sewers, and we can't get them.
Yeah. So, you experience the water sort of coming. So this is the high end down there.
Well, it's built on a slope.
Yeah. So,
and it's gotten worse. I mean, if you look at what FEMA has put out, you see that it's expanded.
Mhm.
And it used to be just a vernal spring is a spring that's all year round.
Sure.
It's
Sure.
a good size, yeah.
Yeah.
And when they put the topsoil on the practice field, and I don't know, I thought that would be a good thing, but any kind of movement, just, we felt the outcome. Not that we wanted to see, the kids have a place to practice and all of that. We've been, fine about it, but too worried. That's, I think, why with that underground parking, it's like, oh my God, now cars are going to be there, and are you going to flatten that whole area? So, because it's literally on a slope, and that's why the school, just has all those strange ramps through it, and yeah.
So, generally speaking, it's hard to give you specific answers on how those things can be addressed until we have a specific project to engineer it to. Strategies for bettering that situation are to decrease impervious, which is asphalt and buildings and stuff like that, increase impervious, get the water into the ground sooner so that it has time to dissipate and not flatly just run off. And so when you get the flow and the volume really high, it creates problems downstream. And so we want to control sheet flow. That's one thing. But what happens when we get the actual option selected, the one that is the most viable, right solution for Burlington, the engineers come in, we do all this rainwater analysis, we calculate where it lands, how it's leaving the site, we do the analysis for how to make it better. On this site, we will most likely include a hydrogeology study. I think a neighbor said they have a son or a child that is in hydrogeology. And what that looks like is you specifically look at the way we improve runoff and things are through BMPs and better management practices. And those have, when a rain event happens, it's what's called a mound happens. The rainwater hits the ground, the groundwater will mound up, and then over a certain time it dissipates back down as it finds its way through the underground strata of ledge and rock and all that stuff.
Well, that's why I really liked seeing all that greenery in between with trees and bushes and all of that.
Sure.
That would take up some of the water, so.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And look nice.
Yeah. So I think what I'm trying to say is that we want to take that serious, and I think your experiences are, something we don't want to make any worse, and we want to make it better, which is what the goal and scope of stormwater management is. And so, I think you can maybe take a deep breath and understand that the project will take that seriously and do that. But we can't really show you specific responses until we know what the specific option is. And that's just a natural part of any project, that we select the option and then we engineer to it.
Right. So having the stadium there and any kind of, going underground is the cause of concern.
Sure.
Besides everything else that they've been saying too. So.
Yeah. Sure.
But, my goal was we are your neighbors. We all live in the same town. We've known each other for a long time. And, I think everyone needs to tone it down. We have to work together on this. I get that. We want the kids to have new school that works. So, works for everyone. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Joanne?
Wait, Chris, can you please address Millie's question on where you enter the building on that other slide? Just so she
Yes. Chris, will you
Leaving
please
Millie
address
out.
Millie's question?
Yes, I will address Millie's question.
And after Joanne, Nolan, and then I see the guy in the green shirt, I can't remember your name. We'll do those three, and hopefully we'll start to wind down in a few minutes.
Right, because I was going to say that, we're gone about 2 hours, and like I said, I think we've heard from most of the abutters, and there will be another community meeting coming up, so don't think this is the end.
We're probably going to need another abutters meeting, too, because I think this needs to continue.
Thank you.
So to address the entrances, this is NC4 here. Many of you haven't met Michaela from our office, but this is Michaela from our office.
Michaela from our office.
So NC4 hasn't, both actually NC4 and NC5, the main entrance to the building is on the Dottie Way side of the building. And this NC4 option has a gym on the Cambridge Street side, which means that there's a big tall volume there, but only probably half or less is going to be visible from Cambridge Street because Cambridge Street is higher than the base field. But it would have like a fenestration and a nice facade, something nice for everybody to look at as you go up and down Cambridge Street, but no real entrance or engagement on Cambridge Street side for the building. NC5 has entrances on Dottie Way. Again, these are the main entrances. There's actually one in the middle of that curve for the student drop-offs, not the student bus and teacher entries that are in that lot. But the goal for this one is, as we work more on the schematic design side, we can finesse it a little bit better, but it's been developed so that it's a building that the second floor can actually be the same height as what's on Cambridge Street, and that was positioned to be a library. Actually, there's a program in this building called Cambridge Street Closet and, help me on the other one, the gallery, that can be more public-facing elements to the community. And so we thought that in order to activate and engage that Cambridge Street side, we can actually create a facade that feels like a business or something that would be receptive on that corridor, but the actual entrance to the building, if you're a visitor to coming in for a high school program or something, would be on the Dottie Way side where the parking is.
If I might just say, this seems to me it would be creating the problem that Marshall Simon solved when they did their renovation, which was you didn't know how to get into Marshall Simon's because the front of the building along the street was not where you got in. So
there'll only be one way. You go down Dottie Way and then you go in the building.
Right. But when you're going up and down Cambridge Street,
Yeah,
I'm
you
not
can't get
sure.
in.
I think the football field, and I'm not even a big sports fan, looks better than this.
Okay, Joanne.
Hi, Joanne Frustacci, Precinct 3 Town Meeting. and abutter. I have a few disparate thoughts now, but the first is going to be, I just wanted to address Mr. Davison, when you mentioned the 18 million, it kind of dovetails with what Maureen said about missing.
Joanne addressed me, and if
sorry.
Doug is the right person to answer the question, I'll pass it off.
Sorry, for the chair. So I heard $18 million as if it were not accurate, but that figure, as you both know, is from your estimator, and it's on the NC5 plan on your website, right?
Chris, is that accurate?
Yeah, so the early estimates had dollar figures that are in there for, these are PDP level takeoffs, and so we showed a scope. Estimator looks at it and says, we think it might be that. So there's an $18 million, or not 18 for that specifically. There was a $5 million field.
12 million for the parking.
And I think the 12 million for some kind of structured parking, and that was what was relayed to the third-party cost estimators, was like, this was parking. And I think when they see that without further costs, like further development of the option, at the time, those are numbers. And so
those figures were from your website. The other thing that was from a meeting was the phrase underground parking. It was the December 12th meeting.
Joanne, is this all about misinformation?
I just want to make those 2 points. This is not all about it.
Okay.
So I just want to be clear that we're trying to be very precise. And in fact, I wouldn't have said this was a done deal. I would say many people left the meeting feeling that there was already a decision, and when the chair speaks strongly in favor of something, that can give that impression, right? But the other thing I just wanted to say is, prior to hearing you say you're going to try to take the stadium off the table, I had obtained the schedule for the varsity field. I think you both addressed the use of the field on January 9th or December 12th, I can't remember which, and you had a schedule that said 3 p.m. to 8 p.m., right? And it was some discussion about that, and Mrs. Bond said, oh my God, that's all the time. Yeah, that's 7 days a week, 3, but in fact, the real schedule is what Rec Department has, which and the reason I'm concerned about this is because...
Joanne, try not to make this a whole lot of detail.
Right. Okay, the committee would make a decision about the stadium without this schedule, which really concerns me.
Decision has been made.
No, would.
It's all up in the air.
Would.
Okay.
Okay,
Would.
so I want to enter this into the public record and just make 3 sentences of points about it, okay? So, in March, the field is in use till 10 p.m. half the month. In April, the field is in use till 10 p.m. more than half the month.
In use with huge football games, or just in use? Like,
let's see. Well,
lights on. Is it the
youth
lights?
soccer. I mean, you'd have to have lights on to do anything on the field, right? Youth soccer.
The lights are on until 10 p.m.
Yes, and these are pages and pages of. Let's see, in May, there are 13 days till 10 p.m. and 1 day till 11 p.m.
Catherine says we have this information.
It wasn't made public to me when I made a public records request for the schedule. Dr. Conti gave me the 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. schedule, but I got this from Rec. So if you do have it, that's great, but it wasn't at the meeting. Okay. So just consider that band practice, I'm not even going to go into. 2 weeks of 7 hours a day.
I love listening to band practice.
You would love listening to the band music, but when it's drum drilling, you wouldn't love it.
We like different things.
Well, you wouldn't like the drum drilling, I'm sure. So anyway, Sunday nights, 8 to 10 p.m., more than half of the year, 6.5 months out of the year, Sunday nights.
You get the point.
That's all I'm going to say.
Jeremy.
One other little point. You had pros and cons in November on NC5, and the con was drop off and pick up. NC5's cons changed in the last thing that got handed out on February 13th. And drop-off and pick-off was no longer a con. Oh, so did you change the plan?
Plan.
Okay, great.
Jeremy, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just with the schedule, so that's the existing condition, so if we do nothing with the varsity field, that remains the same. So I guess the band's gonna have to practice on the field regardless, or somewhere on this campus. So I don't know if those conditions change. I'm just trying to understand the point a little bit more clearly.
My point is just the use of the field, the usage of the field is way more extensive than I would have thought coming from the meeting where it was discussed from 3 to 8 p.m. That's all. So my other concern is the practice field. I really appreciate that you recognize that this is a not workable plan, the stadium right here. I have great trepidation that the practice field is going to work out. And then I guess, where are we then? And I'm
Let me
really
answer
worried
your
about that.
question.
Yeah.
If we can't do a field, we have to decide one of two things. Either we go without a field and we still build new, or we do an ad reno and we leave the field where it is.
Okay.
But all of those things are to be determined.
Okay.
And it's going to depend a lot on conservation and what we can do and what mitigation can be done. I know that some can be done. Whether it's enough, we have to find out.
Because you won't be able to put a building there, so you won't be able to put bathrooms there, right?
That's not excluded, but
Okay.
it's not categorically excluded.
Okay. And the fact that it has to be flagged, and I know you trust the GIS, but I know that our conservation director, for instance, might not feel comfortable trusting the GIS. So I don't feel reassured by that GIS. So we're still worried.
There's a lot more to be figured out on that.
Thank you. And thank you for saying we might need another meeting. Thanks for your time.
Nolan.
Can I ask a question first?
Bobby, sure.
While Nolan's coming up. This is online, asked multiple times. If the school were to be built on varsity field and varsity field were to be put on the practice field, where would the practice field be moved? Or would there no longer be a practice field?
All right, there's a design that our architect has come up with that is really a clever design. It has varsity field and the practice field off at an angle. They would both fit in that spot.
Thank you.
Nolan.
Thank you. Nolan Glantz. I'm not an abutter. I'm a Precinct 1 town meeting member. A couple of quick points from what I'm seeing and hearing tonight. If you can put up some of the slides, like one of the overhead renderings. The renderings that show the traffic flows and the whole site are very useful for me in trying to understand versus the ones that just show the building. That's useful for understanding the building, but the whole site, which we're kind of trying to pick which site layout to go with. Like these types of, like this one or the one with the AR where it shows kind of the whole flow with the traffic going through the middle of like these kinds of things. These are very helpful. So when we're doing the comparison thing, if we can be having and showing those, I couldn't find those on the website yet. Maybe they're not there yet. I don't know. The second question I have is
This should be on the website.
Okay, good. If you can go to the slide that had the costs, it had a bar graph on the upper right. Yeah, that one. So when I was looking at this, and I hadn't seen this before, maybe I didn't look through the site well enough, but this is useful too. AR2 and AR8, there's a cost difference between them, but the AR2, for example, is actually more expensive than NC5. Everyone's assuming new builds cost more than ad reno, not according to this. And so I know that we're going to hopefully soon get a better cost estimate, but to me, like what you were saying, Ms. Monaco, pick the right project as opposed to, assuming what's going to cost more or less. I think it's really about, to me, it's about that as opposed to, well, assume new build costs way more, so it's not worth the money. I think obviously a lot of the site layout issues are very important. I hope that we do pick the right project for the right reasons. So I appreciate it.
Ms. Monaco, can I address?
Sure, Terry, go ahead.
So when looking at the bar chart on the right, those are the options as they were designed back in November, okay? Subsequent to that, the building committee directed us basically to ensure that all what I refer to as all non-high school programming. So that includes your district offices, that includes the child care center, that includes the science center, that includes BCAT, all to be included in this project in whatever design we come up with. And in those options there, what we included in each of them varied based on if you demolish certain portions of the building, you'd have to get rid of things. So on an apples-to-apples basis, those options at the time had different assumptions for what was included for non-high school programming. The estimates that we've refined these 5 options, as somebody pointed out, well, they have changed because they've been working on them since November. But what's gone to the cost estimators now is those revised designs that all account for all non-high school related programming. So those numbers are going to change because we are going to account for everything, and we will reconcile the numbers so people can understand why they changed. But I just want to make sure that people understand that the assumptions, the underlying assumptions have changed, which consequently changes the estimates. So I hope that's clear. If it's not, I'll go home and practice it in front of the mirror and hopefully say it better.
The point is that we don't want to leave this building in a mess. We want this whole project to be complete. And so this area, the superintendent's office, the school committee room, the preschool would move to the cafeteria. The cafeteria would be moved in any one of the options. The cafeteria would be moved, and we're looking at this as a community project where those things that are so important to the community, whether it's BCAT, whether it's these offices, whether it's the integrated preschool, whether it's the gymnasiums, they're all going to be part of the project. And so keep renovating those things is part of any one of the projects.
Thank you. When do we expect to get the new estimate numbers you were talking about?
We're expecting those within the next 2 weeks, and those will be presented to the next SBC meeting. So, their first look will be, I think the meeting is the 13th?
13th.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nolan. Okay, I got the guy in the green shirt. Tell me your name again. Maybe I'll remember it this time. And then one more, the woman in the back who put your hand up. And then I think we need to make another meeting.
It's Rupen Sharma. It'll be really quick because you've basically answered my question. Since it sounds like in principle we've agreed that regardless of what option we choose, we're not going to put the varsity football field in the middle of the building, right? Can that be formally put to vote in the next SBC meeting?
It can be, but I don't know. I'm not the chair. The chair's online, and we'll have to talk about it. But, I think we're headed in that direction.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to be clear because I don't want people walking out of here thinking that it's off the table, because unless it's officially off the table, it's...
Not official yet, but...
Okay.
It's not official yet, but we will discuss it at the next meeting, as Ms. Monaco, the vice chair, mentioned.
We need the Abutters to support our project. We can't get a debt exclusion without you guys, so...
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Agree.
And the woman in the back?
Hi, this is a yes or no, and I don't need any explanation. And maybe the only person that doesn't know is...
Come on up. Give us your name.
We can't hear you online when you're in the back there. If you could come up, please.
Yes or no oftentimes becomes a maybe.
Deb Cody, I live on 2 Valley Circle right there.
Nice to meet you.
And first of all, thank you. And I came to the meeting before and left really upset. And it was very aggressive on both sides, and it was disturbing. Tonight's been great. Thank you to everybody. And all I want to know, and like I said, I might be the only one that doesn't, is there an option, and have we discussed it, and is it off the table, to build a brand-new high school on this site and keep the football field there?
No. There is no place to put it on this site.
Can I? I think the
Maybe.
question is, can you?
Yes or no?
I think
I was just making a joke.
maybe. I think
Sometimes
if I
yes and no
can,
is maybe.
if I can maybe rephrase the question and say, is this what you're asking? And then I can answer is to say, you mean knock this whole thing down and put a building right here?
Brand new high school.
Yeah, so we looked at that early on, and we had, I think, 1 or 2 options that looked at that in detail. The issue with that was there's major costs associated with where do you put everybody in this building during that time of construction, and there is no solution for that. Like, you would have to go off-site somewhere to find enough modular temporary space, which is multiple millions of dollars, like, up there. So, so the building committee had taken that into consideration and said, because of the temporary school cost and displacement and question marks around that, it's really kind of a non-starter. And so that's, I don't know if I misphrased that for anybody, but.
Thank you.
Oh, that's accurate. It's accurate.
Works for me.
Chris,
Thank
you
you.
want to say something?
I remember that conversation because we talked about that quite a bit. And it was also that we'd have to retrofit where we went if it wasn't then modular. So like, we're all thinking there's a lot of open buildings here. Those had to be retrofitted, like the building that was thrown out across the street. That would still have to be retrofitted. And so it's not just as easy as moving into an open, vacant office building because it doesn't have all of the same ADA compliance, doesn't have all of the same needs. So we did talk about that as an option of like, hey, can the kids go to the mall? There's open space. Can they go there? And that was just one of those of like, it just didn't seem feasible, logical. And then it's also far away from then the athletics and all the
That's
other
fine.
things.
Got it. Thank you very much.
So I think that we probably should have more opportunities for abutters. So maybe if you feel like coming to the next high school building committee meeting, and we want to set another date at that time, that would be great. But it was nice to have all of you here tonight. We appreciate your input and your help, and we have to approach this as a team, because unless we do that, we will not get anywhere. So really appreciate all of you being here. Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you soon. Stay in touch.
Yes, and I will echo what Chris said. Thank you all for attending, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm actually down in North Carolina. So, again, thank you all.